Hey guys, tonight we slip into silk and shuffle our way back to ancient China, a land of scholars, sages, and sleep rituals that make your memory foam mattress look like a stone bench. You're standing just beyond a carved wooden gate, the moonlight glinting on lacquered panels, the scent of jasmine curling around your nose like a lazy cat. The courtyard ahead is quiet, lit only by the soft golden flicker of a hanging lantern, its painted paper sides rustling in the breeze. A sleepy servant girl in embroidered slippers shuffles past you without a word, holding a tray of steaming herbs. This isn't just bedtime. This is a sacred procession. You're expected to do more than lie down and close your eyes. You're here to align your chi, cool your internal fire, and if the night is truly lucky, glimpse the celestial scroll of fate in a dream. And if you snore, well, try not to. There's a chance it might attract fox spirits. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment below with where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step forward. The flagstones are cool beneath your feet. The walls rise tall around you, thick with ivy and quiet secrets. There's a hush in the air, like the house itself is preparing for sleep. Inside the main chamber, candlelight pools over lacquered furniture. A low bed waits against the far wall, its wooden canopy carved with scenes from the Shanghai Jing, the classic of mountains and seas. Dragons twist between the beams. A carp leaps up a waterfall carved in delicate relief. The sleeping chamber isn't just a place to rest. It's a curated environment meant to lull your soul into harmony. Wealthy households spend lavishly on sleep accessories, silken mosquito netting, embroidered bed covers stitched with lucky symbols, and scented pillows filled with herbs like mugwort and angelica. Even the layout of the room follows strict geomantic rules. That wide mirror, covered at night, to avoid inviting wandering spirits. The foot of the bed never faces the door. That's the direction corpses are carried out. You lie down carefully. A servant adjusts the pillow beneath your head. It's not soft, but cool and perfectly firm. It's made from bamboo shavings, believed to draw out excess heat from your body. The summer air is heavy with humidity, so they've placed a wide porcelain basin of water near the door, where it can slowly evaporate and cool the room. There's a gentle clinking as the wind brushes a metal wind chime outside, a calming lullaby for the elite. The mat beneath you is woven from rushes and bamboo. It's surprisingly comfortable if you ignore the occasional creak. Your host believes in balancing the body's 5 elements before sleep. And tonight, you're the guest of someone important. Someone who trusts sleep the way others trust gold. A boy in a simple tunic enters, holding a box. Inside, you catch a glimpse of tiny jade tokens, each carved with a different celestial symbol. These are Ming Fu, dream talismans. According to tradition, they guide your soul through the dream realm, protecting it from danger. You're offered one shaped like a crane, symbolizing longevity. The boy places it beside your head with great care, as if it were a weapon. In some ways, it is. You're about to wander into a battlefield of symbols, memories, and premonitions. But before dreams, there must be preparation. That's the rule. You notice the faint smoke curling from a nearby burner, where dried artemisia leaves release a warm, earthy scent. It's meant to banish nightmares, though you secretly suspect it's also excellent for masking the smell of damp shoes. In the corner, a painted folding screen shows a scholar reclining under a plum tree, eyes half closed, a teacup in one hand. A poetic nod to the idea of sleep as scholarly pursuit. Because in this time and place, dreaming isn't random. It's not what happens when your brain is bored. No, dreaming is a map, a coded message from the universe. And your job? To read it properly, or risk misinterpreting your destiny. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were spiritual guidance or social control. But what's clear is that people took them very seriously. Entire careers were built on interpreting dreams. Emperors consulted dream readers like you might consult a GPS. With great faith and occasional desperation, commoners scribbled their dreams in margins of farming almanacs, hoping to avoid bad harvests or find lost chickens. Tonight, you will try to dream the right dream, the one that offers harmony, that restores your energy and impresses your host at breakfast. No pressure. In the hush that follows the final footstep of your attendant, you become aware of the room's deep stillness. It isn't silence exactly. It's more like the world holding its breath. The candles have burned low. The scent of sandalwood fills your nostrils. Somewhere outside, a night bird calls. And here in this antique cocoon of silk, smoke, and carefully aligned furniture, you begin to drift, not just into sleep, but into the thick, swaying curtain that separates waking from dreaming. You wake, or rather, hover, in that strange in-between place where your body is still and your mind is oddly alert. A whisper of fabric rustles beside you, but no one's there. Just the glow of the dying candle, the steady breath of your own chest, and a feeling like something ancient is about to unfold. Beneath your head, your pillow shifts slightly. It isn't just a pillow. It's a cleverly hidden cache of bedtime tools. And tonight, someone has left you a few extras. You reach under and pull out a small silk pouch. Inside are dried lotus seeds, 2 tiny pieces of fragrant camphor, and what appears to be a hand-copied slip of rice paper. It's a dream manual, not the kind mass-produced for the market stalls, but a personal one, handwritten with ink that still smells faintly metallic. The characters are graceful, looping like a calm river, each stroke carefully considered. You recognize the title, Manglan Xuanji, Forest of Dreams, Profound Interpretations, originally compiled by a scholar named Chen Xun in the Ming Dynasty, though the version you're holding seems much older. Or maybe it's just the dramatic calligraphy. The text inside is unlike anything you've seen. There are no paragraphs, just poetic phrases and strange diagrams. To dream of fireflies in winter signifies the arrival of forgotten joy. If one sees a stone sinking upward, expect the birth of mischief. You blink, unsure whether it's metaphor or nonsense. But that's the point. These manuals weren't meant to make immediate sense. They were tools to unravel your subconscious or trap it in symbolic riddles, depending on your mood. As you lie there, the thought crosses your mind. Who exactly wrote this? Historians still argue whether these manuals were authored by solitary mystics, court scholars with too much time, or traveling monks who compiled dreams like recipes. Some believe parts were plagiarized from Indian texts that arrived along the Silk Road, mingled with Confucian etiquette and Taoist visions of the spirit realm. Whatever the origin, one thing is clear. People believed in them deeply. Families passed down dream books like heirlooms. Lovers annotated them with coded notes. Imperial advisors kept them tucked beneath their robes, pretending not to check them before every decision. You flip to a section labeled Dreams That Occur Before Rain. It lists a menagerie of animals, cats dancing, goats weeping, dragons sneezing. You try not to smile. Apparently, dreams weren't just nightly entertainments. They were weather forecasts, fertility predictions, even social commentary. A dream about your teeth falling out? That one's universal. But here, it could also mean your uncle's luck is changing. Beside your bed, someone has placed a low lacquer tray with a reed brush, a shallow dish of ink, and a folded sheet of paper. Tonight, you're expected to write down whatever comes to you in your dreams. Not for yourself, of course. Your host keeps a household dream journal, and guests are expected to contribute. It's polite. You've heard of nobles comparing dream entries at breakfast. Some even commissioned local painters to illustrate particularly vivid ones. And in certain circles, the ability to remember and describe a dream in flowery detail was considered more impressive than writing a decent poem. You think of the scholar Zhu Congzi, who famously claimed he once dreamed of riding a white elephant across a bridge made of stars. The dream was copied, shared, and eventually inscribed on his tomb. According to legend, someone centuries later had the same dream and wrote a sequel. That version included a second elephant and a polite disagreement about which stars to follow. Not that everyone had such lofty dreams. One footnote in the manual warns, if you dream of dumplings floating in soup, you may soon receive a visitor. Be wary if the dumplings leak. This is possibly both metaphor and a dietary suggestion. You stretch your legs, mindful not to disturb the careful alignment of your sleeping posture. Taoist teachings say your head should point north to align with celestial energies, and your hands should rest loosely over your lower abdomen to cradle your qi. Your host mentioned this casually over tea. They also warned you not to fall asleep with your mouth open, lest your soul drift out and forget how to get back. You begin to notice a slight cooling sensation on your chest. Tucked into your robe is a tiny sachet, stitched shut with red thread and filled with fragrant wood shavings and crushed pearls. It's called a bao meng, a dream-preserving charm. Its purpose is twofold: to ease nightmares and to help you remember the important details when you wake. They're often given to children, but apparently, your host thinks you might need one. And honestly, you do. The more you explore this world, the more your own dreams start to feel amateurish, like you've been watching a badly edited movie in a foreign language. without subtitles. One particularly strange diagram in the manual shows a turtle carrying a lantern on its back, standing atop a wave. You don't know what it means, but the caption reads, "This dream may cause concern. Avoid cabbage for 3 days." You make a mental note, just in case. Outside, the wind shifts. A faint rattle from the wind chime returns, followed by the soft clop of hooves somewhere distant. A night patrol, perhaps, or just a ghost horse. Either way, you stay in bed. The manual begins to feel heavier in your hand, not physically, but in meaning. Like it's not just a guidebook, but a doorway. As your eyelids begin to tug downward again, the last thing you see is a single line of text glowing faintly in the candlelight. Do not chase the figure that offers you coins. Noted. You close your eyes again. This time, you fall harder, quicker. The room melts away. You see smoke, a river, a stone that breathes. Somewhere, behind the veil of sleep, a figure waits. You're no longer in your borrowed bed, or if you are, it no longer feels like a bed at all. There's a coolness beneath you that suggests polished stone, not bedding, and your head is resting against something that hums faintly, like a tuned string in the dark. You try to open your eyes, but your mind keeps them closed, like curtains not yet ready for morning. You're dreaming, and you know it. The manual worked, or the sachet, or maybe the cabbage warning was more metaphorical than you gave it credit for. But this isn't just any dream. This one feels staged. You're in a theater of the subconscious, designed by architects you've never met, with lighting cues and fog machines set centuries ago. There's a scent here, unmistakable, sandalwood and ash. You sit up, at least you think you do, and find yourself in the center of what looks like a ceremonial sleep chamber. It's cavernous, silent, lit by hanging lanterns that sway gently even though there's no wind. The walls are painted with curling dragons and cloud motifs, and the ceiling is a mosaic of constellations, painted in such detail that you think you see one twinkle. Probably your imagination. Or not. At the far end of the chamber stands a small raised platform with a sleeping mat of woven bamboo and a pair of wooden clappers set beside it. You remember reading about this setup court officials in certain dynasties, especially during the Tang era, had designated dream rooms. Places not for sleeping per se, but for intentional dreaming, lucid trances encouraged through specific rituals. The wooden clappers were used to summon attendants once the dreamer awoke, or in more theatrical interpretations, to summon the dream back when it started to slip away. You walk toward the platform, float, really, and your bare feet make no sound. You feel light, not just physically, but emotionally. No anxiety, no nagging modern to-do lists, just the sound of your own breath and the faint memory of a line from the manual. To dream without intention is to wander a library blindfolded. Tonight, you are not blindfolded. At least, not yet. You lie down on the mat, mimicking the position you saw in a painted scroll, legs straight, arms at your sides. One palm facing up to receive visions, one down to remain tethered. You hear a bell ring somewhere in the distance. Once, then twice, then silence. A signal, maybe, or your brain queuing up the next scene. Now comes the fringe tidbit, a real gift from history's attic. Some Tang era nobles reportedly hired dream assistants, actual people whose job it was to sit beside the sleeper and whisper calming words or chant low-level mantras to keep nightmares at bay. Imagine updating your arsum, specialized in whispering plum blossom metaphors to the Duke of Sleepy Hollow. References available upon request. Historians still argue whether these assistants were trained mystics, overpaid servants, or just concubines with a flair for verse. But their role was vital. A bad dream could sour your mood for days, or worse, signal spiritual imbalance. The Tang court took dreams very seriously. Some emperors even ordered their dream scrolls archived alongside official documents. Sleep, after all, was a form of governance. You feel a tingling on your forehead. It's as if someone is brushing a feather across your skin. You reach up, but there's nothing there. Just the suggestion of presence. Then a voice, so faint you might be imagining it, says something like, "Forget the tiger, follow the goat." You try to remember whether that's in the manual. A goat usually means stubborn change. A tiger, well, tigers are complicated. In dreams, they can mean courage, danger, or overeating. Depends on whether the tiger was polite. You keep still, breathing evenly. The chamber begins to shift around you, not in motion, but in intention. The walls soften, colors melt. You're in a courtyard now, moonlit, surrounded by plum trees in bloom. Petals fall upward. Time is broken in the best possible way. A man walks past you, trailing a scroll longer than a fishing net. He nods but does not speak. His eyes are closed. Dream archivist, perhaps. Or just a detail your brain finds amusing. Behind him, a small child is playing with a compass, trying to measure the moon. You sit beside a koi pond that reflects constellations not visible in the waking world. One of the fish speaks to you, not in words, but in memory. It reminds you of a story from the Han Dynasty, a scholar who dreamed of a butterfly and awoke unsure whether he was a man dreaming of a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming of being a man. Classic identity crisis. 2,000 years before TikTok. You chuckle quietly. That counts as one of your 3 light jokes. The koi seems to approve. In the far corner of the courtyard, a door appears, carved from black wood, with golden hinges shaped like bat wings. Not scary bats, auspicious ones. Bats were lucky in Chinese symbolism. Their word, fu, sounds like blessing. You knock once. The door opens inward without a sound. Inside is a room filled with pillows, literally floor to ceiling. You float through them like you're swimming. Every few feet, you glimpse symbols stitched into the fabric, calligraphy, zodiac signs, even snippets of poetry. One reads, "Do not search for your name in another's dream." You start to feel the pull of gravity again, a gentle reminder from your real body, perhaps. But your mind resists. This dream isn't done yet. Before you can protest, you're handed a tiny scroll, a dream receipt. It reads, "Cloudfish, red door, goat." You tuck it away. Might come in handy. The scene blurs again. This time, you hear rain, a soft drizzle at first, then heavier. You look up, expecting to feel it, but nothing touches you. The rain is falling behind glass, or through time. It falls upward, sideways, stops, and reverses. A woman in pale robes appears, holding a dream manual of her own. She doesn't speak, but hands you a brush dipped in gold. You know what to do. On the back of your hand, you write a single word. Return. You wake, not suddenly, not gasping, just gently. Back in your borrowed bed. The candle has burned lower. The sachet is still warm. Your pillow smells faintly of sandalwood. You remember the goat. And for now, that's enough. You're not quite sure how long you've been lying here, half wrapped in layers of bamboo-scented stillness, the fabric of the dream still clinging lightly to your thoughts. The goat lingers in your mind, trotting somewhere just out of sight. But something else calls to you now, not a voice, but a presence, like a hand reaching across time to nudge you gently awake, not out of sleep, but deeper into its folds. It's morning, sort of, not in the real world, but in this memory of ancient China you're now inhabiting. You wake inside a scholar's home during the late Han Dynasty, the kind of household where books are treated better than most guests, and silence is not awkward but sacred. You stretch slowly, because that's the pace of things here, and your limbs creak like lacquered wood. Outside the open lattice window, you hear the slow burble of a garden stream, and the occasional, absolutely judgmental chirp of a magpie. Today's lesson begins before breakfast, because here, in this scholar's world, dreams are not just nightly entertainment. They are research, a record, a responsibility. The man you're staying with, let's call him Wei, keeps a dream ledger bound in faded silk and packed with years of midnight observations. You peek at it while sipping warm rice water, half curious and half jealous of his ability to organize his subconscious with such precision. Some entries are stunningly poetic. Last night, I chased a crimson turtle through clouds of powdered ink. It laughed. Others are bluntly practical. Dreamed of fire in neighbor's yard. Awoke to find stove unattended. And some are downright cryptic. Spoke to my mother. She had the wings of a goose and asked about taxes. You're not sure if that's profound or just tax season anxiety, but either way, you admire the dedication. Dream recording wasn't just for eccentric scholars. Even emperors had scribes who chronicled their nightly visions. In certain courts, an odd dream might trigger actual policy reviews. Imagine waking from a dream about a horse with two tails and ordering a grain audit just in case. Historians still debate whether this practice was symbolic divination or bureaucratic boredom weaponized, but either way, it kept the scribes busy. You flip to an empty page in Wei's ledger. He nods approvingly and hands you a brush, ink already prepared. He trusts you to begin your own entry. You hesitate. What did you dream? The goat, the koi, the upside-down rain, but now in daylight, or what passes for it in this constructed morning. It feels impossible to capture. You scrawl a few characters anyway. Cloud soft, voice gentle, goat untrustworthy. Wei peers over your shoulder and raises an eyebrow. You think he's judging your penmanship, but then he grins and pats your back. Progress. Now comes the scholarly part of the morning. You follow Wei to a small inner chamber where dream manuals line the walls like honored guests. You half expect one to speak. Some scrolls are decorative, etched in gold, meant more for display than use. But others are frayed, smudged, clearly loved. You pick one at random. It's called the Book of Gentle Warnings. Sounds ominously soothing. Inside are illustrations of dream figures. Goats again. Interestingly, each annotated with meanings and counter-meanings. Dream of a goat with red eyes? Deception. Blue eyes? An impending visit from a distant cousin. No eyes at all? Switch to a different pillow. One particularly strange passage describes the dream of many doors. If you see 3 doors and choose the wrong one, your spirit may wander too long and return confused. To avoid this, the text advises eating a sliver of dried orange peel before bed. Not for any medical reason. It just reminds the soul of citrus, which never forgets its root. You'd roll your eyes if it weren't all so oddly convincing. Scholars of the Han period often treated the act of dreaming as a spiritual walk, like visiting a temple, only slipperier. They weren't interested in Freud-style interpretations, at least not yet. Their focus was symbolic harmony. Did your dreams align with the seasons, the stars, your recent diet of fermented duck egg? Balance was key. You dream in chaos. You wake in imbalance. The fringe fact here might surprise you. Some Chinese dream interpreters believed in dream loans. That is, your spirit might borrow a dream meant for someone else, especially if you slept in their bed, ate from their bowl, or wore their socks, which means you might have just experienced Wei's goat problem, not your own. You ask him, just to be sure. He chuckles. No goat, but I did lose my sandal in a cloud. Comforting. Back in the garden, you take a moment to rest under the plum trees, nibbling on a rice cake flavored with osmanthus. It tastes like edible perfume, sweet but distant, a reminder that even flavor was part of dream preparation. Heavy meats before bed? Expect stormy symbols, light teas, and floral snacks. Your dreams might float like silk over water. You sip a chrysanthemum brew and swear you can already feel the dream chamber opening again. Wei hands you another scroll. This one more cryptic. No title, just a red thread wrapped around its center. Inside are sparse lines of verse. Riddles, really. When you dream of fire, ask who lit the candle. When you dream of rain, ask whose roof it falls upon. You wonder if the book is mocking you or testing you. A knock sounds at the front gate. A visitor? Wei answers and returns with a small pouch. It contains 7 pebbles, each carved with a symbol: bird, boat, eye, coin, sword, fish, and mirror. He pours them onto a tray and asks you to choose 3. You hesitate. Then you pick the bird, the coin, and the mirror. He nods solemnly. Tonight's dream is decided. You want to ask what it means, but he's already turning away. Write it down after, he says. Don't try to understand it before. Later, as night falls, you prepare for bed in the same ceremonial way you did before. Sachet, brush, silence. The candles flicker lower. The air feels thick again, like soup barely cooled. And just before your eyes drift shut, you remember something the manual said, almost in passing. Most dreams forget you before you forget them. You wonder if that's true. You wake with the faintest impression that someone has just whispered your name, not loudly, more like the rustle of silk in another room, or the soft sigh of a paper door sliding shut. You sit up slowly, more fog than person, as the dream begins to evaporate like dew on tile. Bird, coin, mirror. You remember choosing those pebbles, but what they conjured, that's already escaping. Still, there's something, a sense of lightness. You recall the bird first, flapping awkwardly, its wings made of parchment. It kept trying to perch on a coin spinning endlessly in the air. And in the distance, a mirror that didn't reflect your face, but someone else's. Someone you've never met, but who somehow felt familiar. You shuffle to Wei's little courtyard, the dream still clinging to your skin like thin mist. He's already there, sipping his bitter tea and pretending not to be waiting for your report. You join him in silence. You both stare at the koi for a while, pretending the fish might interpret your dream better than either of you can. Then, with a sigh, you tell him what you remember. He listens, nodding occasionally, especially at the parchment wings. Those are thoughts, he says, ideas not yet written. He doesn't explain further, just pats your shoulder and hands you another scroll. This one is different, thicker, older. You can smell the lacquered wood cover, dry and faintly spicy like cedar bark. It's not a dream manual, but a preparation text, full of guidance for what to do before you sleep, depending on the type of dream you hope to receive. Some nights, you dream for clarity, others for warning. But sometimes, the purpose is simpler, dreaming to remember what you've already forgotten. That's today's lesson. You turn the pages slowly, eyes catching on rituals you've never imagined. For instance, before a memory dream, you're supposed to sit barefoot in a circle of 9 stones, humming a specific note that mimics a temple bell, not for mysticism, but resonance. Memories travel in waves, the manual claims, and the bell is the key that calls them. Then there's the silk smoke method, reserved for particularly foggy minds. You light a bundle of dried orange blossoms and sandalwood, but instead of inhaling the scent, you write names of people you've lost on slips of rice paper and hold them briefly in the smoke. It's not a seance, just a nudge, a reminder to your dreaming self that you once knew these faces. Scholars still argue whether these rituals actually generated deeper dreams or simply tricked the mind into vivid hallucinations. But you don't need certainty. You need memory. You kneel and follow the instructions precisely, just in case. While preparing your space for the night's rest, you come across a peculiar object on the shelf. It's shaped like a turtle, carved from polished black stone, with a hollow belly. Wei notices your curiosity. It's a dream anchor, he explains. You place a written question inside. If your soul drifts too far, The turtle reminds it to come back. You open the turtle, find an old slip of paper. Where did I lose the comb she gave me? It's unsigned, yellowed. The question feels tender somehow, more wound than curiosity. You carefully tuck it back in and decide to write your own. What am I meant to remember? That night, you lie down on the sleeping mat, the turtle beside your pillow. Outside, the crickets are already in chorus. The fan you imagined earlier returns, its slow rhythmic hum softening the edges of your thoughts. You trace the bird, coin, and mirror in your memory again, and let your breath settle. And then, you are no longer in the garden. You're walking through a hallway that stretches far beyond sight, lined with paper lanterns. Each lantern has a name written on it, some familiar, some not. As you pass, they flicker to life, revealing snatches of memory. A forgotten laugh, the scent of ink, a hand you once held for comfort. You pass a lantern marked with your own name. It doesn't light. You pause, reach out. It stays dark until the turtle appears, floating, oddly enough, just beneath it. The lantern flares to life, and suddenly you're back at a summer long gone, standing under a fig tree, listening to someone sing. The sensation is so strong you almost speak aloud, but just like that, the dream dissolves, pulling you forward, not back. When you wake, it's dawn again, or something like it. The koi are flipping lazily in the pond, ways nowhere to be seen. You feel heavier, not unpleasantly so, just filled, like the dream brought something back and tucked it in quietly while you slept. You return to the dream ledger and write carefully. Bird flew, coin spun, mirror remembered. The ink feels thicker today. There's a fringe belief buried in one of Way's texts, a theory that some dreams aren't dreams at all, but borrowed truths, that time, too vast for logic, sometimes folds inward and sends back little pieces of itself in sleep. You're not sure you believe that, but you did remember the song from the fig tree, and you haven't heard that melody since childhood. You hum it now, softly, as the morning breeze lifts the corner of your blanket. Somewhere, a magpie chuckles, probably judging you. You're starting to notice a rhythm now, not just in the way the dreams arrive, but in how your waking mind begins to make room for them, like clearing a spot on a cluttered desk before opening a letter. Way calls this the threshold moment, that delicate state where waking thoughts haven't yet crowded out what the night delivered. He warns you to guard it. Today's scroll is slim and tied with a crimson ribbon. The parchment is softer, almost velvety. The ink, unusually, is green. On the first page, the heading reads, Sleep Positions for Prophetic Dreams. You raise an eyebrow. It seems almost too simple, like something your aunt might clip from a folk remedy book. But as you keep reading, the text insists that posture is a form of intention. You sleep curled tightly when you seek protection. You lie flat with arms open when ready to receive. You rest on your left side for clarity, on your right to summon visitation dreams, those where departed souls stop by for tea or advice, or to comment on your posture, probably. Way, lounging with a persimmon, chimes in without being asked. They used to bury scholars on their right side, he says, licking juice from his fingers, to help them keep dreaming. You glance up. Even in death? He shrugs. Especially in death. Tonight, you decide on the cradle position, legs tucked, one hand beneath the cheek, the other palm open on your chest. It's supposed to encourage dreams of safety and reveal who watches over you. It's also the most awkward to fall asleep in, but you eventually manage, aided by a pillow scented with crushed mugwort. The manual calls it dream incense, claiming it opens the gates between mind and memory. Sleep comes slowly, winding its way through your limbs like a polite guest who knows not to slam the door. And then you're lying in a boat. It's not moving, just floating in a pond of ink. Around you reads the color of jade sway despite the still water. There's someone at the edge of the boat, an old woman weaving strands of silver into your hair. This is how they'll find you, she whispers when they search your dreams for maps. You want to ask what she means, but your tongue won't cooperate. Instead, you raise your palm, the same one that rested on your chest, and it's covered in symbols, not written, but etched, like the rings of a tree, each one pulsing faintly. The woman nods. Good. They left the message in you, after all. Then she dissolves into threads. The boat begins to rock. The pond tilts, and you slide into the ink. You wake not with a jolt, but a question. Who left the message? Wei greets you with a plate of sticky rice and sesame paste, and doesn't ask about the dream. That's part of the ritual now, waiting until the memory bubbles up naturally. When it does, you describe the woman, the boat, the ink. Wei listens carefully, then disappears into the scroll room. He returns holding a jade figurine shaped like a crouched woman with silver hair. Guardian spirit, he says. Common in Tang Dynasty dream talismans, often invoked for navigational dreams, especially among messengers and those seeking lost truths. You nod slowly, unsure whether to feel reassured or deeply, cosmically lost. After breakfast, you revisit the scroll. The next page describes the mirror dream posture, sleeping surrounded by reflective objects, bowls of water, polished bronze plates, even the inside lid of a lacquered box propped open just so. The idea is that light fragments enter your dreams and allow you to observe your subconscious more clearly. You try it that night, arranging the objects with the care of someone setting a trap for thoughts. As you lay down, your reflection stares back at you from every direction, slightly warped and multiplied. You feel absurd, but also oddly vulnerable, as if you've invited a jury to your dreams and told them, judge everything. In the dream, you're back in Wei's courtyard, but it's inverted. The koi are swimming through air. The sky is below you, and Wei is speaking backwards. His lips move like smoke, and you somehow understand anyway. You are dreaming of being awake, he says, which is sometimes the same thing. A reflection of yourself steps out of the water sky and offers you a scroll. It's blank. You look up, and all the mirrors in the dream begin to crack, not shatter, but fracture slowly, like ice under weight. Each crack forms a word, but they're in a language you almost know. When you try to read them, the dream ends. You lie awake in the darkness, heart steady, but mind racing. Did you just try to read your own subconscious? Is that allowed? Later, you find an obscure note tucked into the margins of the scroll. Mirrors reflect the dreamer's doubt. Only the fearless see clearly. Scholars debate what it means. Some say it's metaphorical. Others believe certain dreamers could use reflections to visit alternate selves, versions who made different choices. You sip your morning tea, staring into the bottom of the cup. Just your reflection again, slightly warped, possibly judging you. You never expected to get good at sleeping. It always seemed like the one human activity no one could really excel at, until now. You wake with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their dreams are starting to line up into something. Maybe not a story, but definitely a sequence. And according to Wei, sequence is everything. You've crossed into the lucid corridor, he says over breakfast, which today consists of salted plum porridge and candied lotus root. That's where most people panic or start showing off. You don't ask what he means by showing off. You have a feeling you'll find out. Today's scroll is darker in tone, bound with a ribbon dyed from soot and tea. The heading reads, "The Politics of Sleep in the Han Court." Already you're suspicious. Politics and sleep should never mix, and yet somehow they always do. According to the scroll, emperors of the Han dynasty often kept separate sleep chambers for different types of dreams. One for military foresight, another for romantic clarity, a third reserved for ancestral advice. These rooms were constructed with such specific architecture, roof curvature, directional placement, scented woods, that entering them was said to influence not just the dream, but the outcome of future decisions. One room, called the Silence Hall, was designed to be completely echo-free. Even footsteps vanished into the lacquered floor. No windows, no breeze. The emperor would sleep here on moonless nights, believing that true visions could only appear in total sensory absence. One emperor allegedly ruled an entire campaign strategy based on a single image. He saw there a heron flying backward across a frozen lake. Historians still argue whether the Silence Hall was a real structure or a metaphor. Wei says, draping a cool cloth across his forehead dramatically. Personally, I think someone just wanted a very quiet nap. You laugh, but it gets you thinking. How much of governance was based on dreams? The scroll mentions ministers required to record their dreams in court journals. A few were even dismissed for having unproductive nights. Imagine losing your job because you failed to dream interestingly. Tonight, you sleep in Wei's East Room, a little square chamber with faded silk hangings and one carved beam that hums faintly when the wind passes through it. He says it's the closest he has to a silence hall. You lie down expecting nothing, and for that reason alone, something arrives. The dream begins with a rustle, paper, not leaves. You're walking through a library with no shelves, just scrolls stacked like sand dunes. A woman in official robes stops you and hands you one labeled draft, Imperial Dream Edict. Inside, a single line, no decision without the approval of the sleeping mind. You laugh in the dream. She does not. Instead, She presses a second scroll into your hand. "You've already made your choice," she says. "This will tell you what it was." You look down. The scroll unrolls itself and reveals an image, not words, not a map, but a painting of you standing in front of a door. On one side of the door, endless night. On the other, a garden in morning light. You ask which side you're on. She shrugs. "Depends on when you wake up." And then you do. Wei is waiting with a smirk and 2 cups of ginger tea. "So," he says, "did the court summon you?" You nod slowly, describing the library, the edict, the door. He seems unsurprised. "Ah, the decision dream. That's an advanced one. Usually shows up after the 6th scroll. Don't worry. It doesn't mean you've chosen anything yet. It just means your subconscious thinks it has." You stare into your tea. That night, you start wondering how many decisions in history weren't made in conference halls, or over treaties, or through arguments, but in the soft, flickering space between sleep and wake. How many wars started because someone misread a dream? How many romances began because of a midnight vision? It's absurd and comforting in equal measure. The scroll ends with a quote etched in finer calligraphy than the rest. "A nation is a sleeper who talks in his rest." You lie awake a while, turning that over in your mind. Somewhere, someone powerful is probably dozing with their mouth open, making policy in their dreams. And you're here, surrounded by silk and scrolls, trying to decode what your sleeping brain is whispering behind your back. The scroll you're handed today is heavier than the others. It's cover-bound in thick hemp paper flecked with gold. Wei smiles knowingly, as if to say, "This one's going to get weird." And he's right, because tonight, it's not about emperors or courts or elegant dream logic. It's about the things people used to do before bed when they weren't quite ready to sleep. And honestly, some of them were downright bizarre. You begin reading, and the title is both alarming and delightful. The 22 Pre-Slumber Habits of the Average Tang Dynasty Bureaucrat. You already suspect that if even half of them involve fermented bean paste or interpretive poetry, you're in for a ride. According to the scroll, sleep was not just something that happened at the end of a day. It was something you had to earn. A whole choreography of rituals unfolded before a single eyelid dropped. First came the body unbinding, cloth wraps around the wrists, and ankles were removed to let the chi flow, because apparently sleeping with tight sleeves was an invitation for restless dreams, or in one famous case, ghost entanglement. Then there was the scenting, not perfume, but a kind of bedtime aromatherapy. People dabbed the insides of their elbows with oils made from crushed plum blossoms, ground sandalwood, or in rare cases, powdered pearl mixed with musk, an elixir reserved for the overly wealthy or overly theatrical. Historians still debate whether pearl powder actually influenced dreams or just made snoring sound classier. The scroll notes wryly. One eccentric court scribe apparently refused to sleep unless his bed had been rotated exactly 12 degrees counterclockwise each night. He believed this kept his dreams from becoming repetitive. His neighbors believed it kept him single. You're chuckling now, but the deeper into the scroll you go, the more you realize none of this was arbitrary. Each act had purpose. One popular belief during the Tang Dynasty held that the state of your bedchamber's light just before sleep could influence dream tone. Warm orange glow? Expect romantic dreams or fond memories. A bluish hue from moonlight? Prepare for journeys and cryptic symbols. Total darkness? Best hope your soul is in the mood for introspection. Tonight, Wei prepares your sleeping quarters with a glimmer of mischief. He brings in a small, square lantern with paper thin as cicada wings. Inside, he places a lump of glowing amber resin. The light it casts is unlike anything you've seen, both golden and smoky, like fire pretending to be fog. I call this the nostalgia burn, he says, flopping onto a cushion. Perfect for dreams of places you miss, but haven't been to yet. You settle into the blankets, already half smiling. The bed has been rotated just slightly, and your wrists are dabbed with something that smells like almonds and distant rain. You drift off. In your dream, you're in a room that feels like it's from your childhood, even though you can't name a single object in it. There's a blanket with ducks that might be geese, a window overlooking a sea you've never seen. On the floor, a stack of books you never read, but they feel like yours anyway. Someone's humming, gently, just out of sight. You don't feel the need to find them. It's enough to know they're there. When you wake, the room is quiet and warm. The lantern's gone out, but the scent of amber lingers. Wei is making tea again, this time with chrysanthemum petals floating on top like lazy boats. Dream report? He asks, offering a cup. You tell him about the room, the books, the humming. He nods. Classic nostalgia burn. It hits the soul's soft spots. They used to use that light mixture for people who missed home. Even if they never really had one, you sip the tea, letting that idea settle. Maybe dreams aren't always messages. Sometimes they're just emotional tuning forks, vibrating with the things you didn't know you missed. Wei taps the scroll with one finger. Pre-sleep rituals were about more than just sleep. They were about guiding the dream before it even showed up. You look around the room, the cushions, the soft breeze carrying hints of jasmine, the cup warming your fingers. And yeah, you get it. You're not just here to fall asleep. You're here to arrive somewhere. You're starting to think your dreams are smarter than you. Every night now feels like a gentle ambush. Your sleeping mind, armed with lantern light and crushed plum blossoms, seems to know just where to tug, just what to reveal. And tonight, it's tugging on your ears. Literally, Wei meets you in the courtyard, holding a pair of curious objects. Tiny ceramic bells shaped like frogs. Ear chimes, he says, as if that explains anything. Used by Tang courtesans, elderly monks, and anyone who wanted their dreams to come in musical form. You raise an eyebrow, but he's already fastening them, one near each temple, where the soft curve of cartilage meets your hairline. The bells are light and don't actually ring unless you move too suddenly. The idea, according to the new scroll, is that micro vibrations help attract harmonious dreams, like moths to a melody. It's not even the strangest thing you've read today. This evening's scroll is titled The Soundscapes of Ancient Sleep, and it's about how different cultures across dynasties used sound, or the absence of it, to navigate the transition into dreams. The Chinese had entire categories of dream-friendly tones, often inspired by natural sounds. The slow trickle of water, the rustle of bamboo leaves, the precise pitch of a zither string tuned almost wrong. During the Song Dynasty, entire gardens were built not for looking, but for listening. Gentle fountains would be set up next to sleeping quarters, engineered so the rhythm of the drip changed with the season. Summer drips were slower, to cool the blood. Winter trickles sped up, to stir the chi and ward off dream stagnation. Historians still debate whether these patterns had any neurological impact or simply made people feel fancy. The scroll adds with a wink. Even poetry had its place in this sonic ritual. A Tang nobleman named Shu Mu wrote lullabies not for children, but for himself, whispers of verse meant to be recited with eyes closed, more melody than meaning. One fragment reads, "To the moon's left ears, I whisper my worn-out thoughts. Never remembers. You whisper it aloud, once, then again. Something about the cadence feels like a yawn. Tonight, Wei brings out an antique musical box that doesn't quite function anymore. Instead of turning, it hums faintly from a hidden reed. Broken music is sometimes better," he says. It leaves room for imagination. You lie down and let the sound pull you in. The dream doesn't begin in a place. It begins in a rhythm. You hear dripping, soft and uneven, like a code. You follow it through corridors that smell like tea leaves and snow. The sound leads you to a bamboo grove where every stalk bends gently, not from wind, but from the echo of a lullaby. In the center, a child is playing an invisible instrument. You can't hear the notes, but somehow they shape the world around him. Colors shift, shadows bloom, the path forward lights up as if obeying a song only he knows. You try to ask what he's playing, but your mouth doesn't open. Instead, your hands move in time with the rhythm, and your body walks toward something invisible, certain, and slow. When you wake, there's no music, just the distant clatter of a spoon in Wei's teacup. He doesn't ask what you saw. He just offers a cup and says, "The music will fade soon." That's its job. The scroll ends with an odd anecdote. In one village, it says, people used to whisper into jars before bed, literally breathing their hopes into clay, and then corking the jars to let the dreams ferment. They'd open them a week later and sniff to see if the dream had taken root. No evidence this worked, the scroll admits, but people swore by the smell of success. You lean back on the cushion, bells still lightly dangling near your temples, and wonder what your own jar would contain. A question? A sound? Maybe just the echo of a lullaby no one remembers the words to. That night, you dream of 1,000 jars, some empty, some glowing, all waiting. You wake up to rain, but not the kind that makes you grumble or roll over. This rain is soft as parchment and sounds like it's been falling since the beginning of time. Wei's already awake, boiling water in a pot that seems far too ornate for mere tea. He glances up and says, "Perfect weather for dream ink." You pause, rubbing sleep from your eyes. "Dream ink?" He gestures to the scroll for today. The characters on its cover shimmer faintly, like they've been painted with water that remembers moonlight. You sit, legs tucked beneath you, and begin to read. The title, Ink, Memory, and the Art of Dream Transcription. Apparently, there was once a belief, particularly among scholars in the Han and Tang dynasties, that if a dream was vivid enough, you owed it to the universe to write it down, not just record it, but capture it with reverence, as if the dream itself were a spirit that could vanish unless anchored in ink. But not just any ink. The scroll details how certain mixtures were used depending on the type of dream one hoped to transcribe. A dream about ancestors? Ink infused with ashes from family incense. A love dream? Crushed rose petals and burnt silk threads mixed into the pigment. One famous poet, it claims, dipped his brush in wine and tears, though some historians argue that's more metaphor than method. Still, the recipes for dream ink became so elaborate that entire manuals were written, some of which survive barely. The margins of these old texts are smudged and faded, often with ghostly outlines of characters only half formed, as if the ink itself had second thoughts. Historians still debate whether these writings were meant as real records, prayers, or poetic indulgence. Some see them as the world's earliest dream journals. Others believe they were offerings to gods, ancestors, or simply one's future self. Wei produces a brush and a dish of thick black ink with a silvery sheen. "Tonight, you write," he says, handing them over. You hesitate. "But what if I don't remember the dream?" He shrugs. "Then write the shadow of it. So, after the tea and the rain and a bowl of warm rice porridge, you curl up on your side and let the hush pull you under. Your dream begins in a field, but it's not one you've ever seen. The sky above is parchment-colored. The wind carries voices that don't speak words, and there's a building in the distance with no doors, only open windows stacked like eyes. Inside, you find a scroll, but it's blank. As you stare, ink begins to spill across it on its own. At first, you think it's writing, but then you realize it's painting your dream as you live it. When you wake, you grab the brush without thinking. You dip it into the ink and begin to move it across the paper. You don't know what you're writing. Your hand moves faster than your mind. It's not calligraphy, exactly, and it's not a drawing either, but it is something. And by the end, you're staring at a line of characters that didn't exist in your vocabulary yesterday. Wei leans over your shoulder, reads the ink, and simply says, "That's a good one." You ask what it means. He grins, hard to say. Dream ink has a sense of humor. Later, as the rain fades into silence, you learn that some ancient dream scribes believed their ink-bound dreams could influence future sleep. Writing down a dream of flying might bring you courage. Recording a nightmare with beauty might rob it of its teeth. They saw ink as a net, catching what would otherwise dissolve in the morning air. You look at your own dream painting again. It's drying now, curling a little at the edges, but there's still something alive in it, a shimmer that doesn't quite sit still. "Keep it," Wei says. "Next time you sleep, your dream might read you." You laugh, but something about that feels true. The room smells like rain, and pine ash. The paper is quiet. You curl up once more, this time with ink stains on your fingers and the memory of a scroll that painted itself. And as your eyes close, you whisper a promise to your dream. I'll remember. You wake up mid-sentence, not one you're speaking aloud, but one echoing inside your head like it was copied from someone else's thoughts and left unfinished. There's no telling how long you've been asleep, hours, days, maybe lifetimes, but the phrase lingers like steam over a teacup. Something about mountains and fire and boiled rice? Wei finds you squinting at the wall like it owes you answers. He just smiles and places something in your hands, a folded cloth pouch, soft and heavy. Time for dream seeds, he says. The scroll today is thinner than usual, bound with a red thread that loops in and out of its spine like a heartbeat. Its title, Sowing Sleep, Seeds, Herbs, and the Planting of Dreams. You open it and find yourself stepping into a world of ancient Chinese botanical magic, where sleep wasn't just something that happened, it was something you could grow. According to the scroll, certain herbs were believed to carry dreams in their roots. People in the Warring States period cultivated tiny garden plots near their beds, literal dream gardens. A sprig of mugwort placed under the pillow was said to invite clear visions. Lotus seeds boiled in wine could coax out forgotten memories. And chrysanthemum petals, good for dreams about long-lost lovers. Apparently, though Wei dryly notes, results may vary. You peek inside the pouch and find it's filled with strange pods, dried flowers, and a tiny sachet of powder that smells like crushed leaves and something faintly citrus. Each one is labeled in looping script, insight, reunion, unknowing, flight. You look up. Do I just eat these? Wei shakes his head, amused. You steep them, one pinch, not more, and not all at once, unless you want your dream to resemble an opera performed by confused goats. The scroll even includes diagrams, small illustrations of people sleeping beside different arrangements of herbs. One sleeps beside a ring of rosemary and dreams of floating above a city shaped like a turtle. Another, cradled in a pile of lavender, dreams of speaking with her past self over tea. There's even an entry that says someone once dreamed from the perspective of a spoon. Historians still argue whether these rituals were spiritual metaphors or the earliest experiments in lucid dreaming. The scroll notes. Either way, it's clear the ancients believed that plants and people spoke the same language, just on different frequencies. So tonight, you choose flight. The pod is feather light and smells like dry wind over sand. You steep it in hot water and drink it slowly, the way you'd sip something forbidden. It tastes faintly of ginger and air. The dream arrives on wings. At first, you're weightless, but not like a balloon, more like a leaf drifting on intention. The world beneath you is patterned like a scroll painting, rivers coiling like calligraphy strokes, cities unfurling like opened fans. You dive without falling, rise without effort, and every time you blink, the landscape changes. Then you see someone else flying beside you. Not a bird, not a person, just a flicker. a shadow of someone you almost remember. They say nothing, but every movement they make writes something new in the sky. When you land, it's not on Earth, but on an enormous lotus leaf the size of a banquet table. There's tea waiting, of course. When you wake, Wei is already organizing bundles of herbs by the window. He glances at your face and says, "You took the flying one, didn't you?" You nod, still dizzy with altitude. He chuckles. You look like someone who just got lectured by a cloud. You spend the morning carefully wrapping the remaining seeds. The scroll advises that repeated use can invite dream fatigue, where the mind gets too used to magic and stops noticing its own mysteries. So for now, you'll keep the others tucked away. Just knowing they exist is dreamlike enough. Outside, the rain has stopped. The air smells clean and green. You press the flight pod between your fingers one more time before hiding it in a drawer. Later, when you return to your cushion, you wonder if dreams can be planted. What else are you unknowingly sowing each night? And what might bloom when you least expect it? You wake with a craving, not for food, but for music. The memory's slippery, but you can almost hear the melody trailing behind your dream like incense in an empty temple. Attuned with no instruments, just the steady rhythm of your own breath, synced with something ancient. Wei is waiting with a scroll bound in soft gold thread. Today, he says, we listen. The title reads, Lullabies of the Celestial Bureaucracy. You blink. Is that a band or a government office? Wei gives you a sideways look. Yes. As you unroll the parchment, a story unfolds of imperial lullabies, songs crafted not for babies, but for scholars, mystics, and even emperors, each designed to coax the mind into sleep, or, more precisely, into alignment with the cosmic order. In ancient Chinese philosophy, sleep was not simply rest. It was a journey into harmony with the Tao, the great flow of existence. If you went to sleep out of tune with the universe, you might wake feeling like someone borrowed your body and returned it slightly crooked. So, the celestial bureaucracy, a term used half seriously by Taoist philosophers to describe the spiritual world's pecking order, inspired generations of musicians to compose lullabies meant to pacify wandering minds. These were not lullabies in the Western sense. There were no hush, little baby vibes here. These were orchestral dream engines, built from flutes made of bamboo struck by lightning, zithers strung with silk thread soaked in moonlight, and gongs tuned to imitate the heartbeat of a sleeping dragon. The scroll includes lyrics of one such piece, a quiet chant from the Tang dynasty said to harmonize your internal elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water before bed. The words are so gentle, they sound like they were meant to be forgotten the moment they're sung. There's even a sidebar scribbled in by some ancient monk. This song makes dreams smell like plum blossoms. You glance at Wei. Do dreams have smell? He shrugs. You ever dream about a hot spring and wake up craving sulfur eggs? Fair enough. Historians still argue whether these musical rituals were performed communally in quiet temples under lantern light, or privately at home, just a lone scholar with a zither and some melancholy. Some scholars believe music was used not just to aid sleep, but to guide the dream itself, like setting a film score in advance for your subconscious. Wei retrieves a small bronze instrument shaped like a bell, but with a handle and 7 tongues. He strikes it gently with a padded mallet. The sound doesn't ring so much as breathe. You feel it in your chest before you hear it in your ears. He hits it again, slower this time, then again, and again. You're asleep before the 4th note. The dream is a hallway. Each door you pass hums slightly, and when you press your ear to the wood, you hear different songs, some familiar, others so old they feel borrowed. Behind one door, a bamboo flute plays over rushing water. Behind another, a low drone vibrates your bones like a tuning fork. You open none of the doors. Just listen. Let the hall carry you. You wake up with the sense that someone else was listening with you. A guardian, maybe, or an audience, or just your own soul, humming in approval. Wei's making tea again, this time humming an unfamiliar melody under his breath. You catch only a few words before they drift away, but they're soothing, like a lullaby for the part of you that never grew up. That night, you ask if you can try the bell. He hands it over with reverence, and as you strike it once, then twice, the sound folds the room around you like a blanket. Later, you dream not of places or people, but of music itself, a river of notes, each one a stepping stone. You step lightly and float. The next morning begins with silence. Though complete, it feels like someone turned the world down to low volume. You find Wei sitting cross-legged by the window, sipping tea and staring at nothing in particular. You're about to speak when he holds up a finger and whispers, "Today's scroll is about silence." You tiptoe toward him, exaggerating each step for dramatic effect, because of course you do. The scroll is narrow, aged to a buttery yellow, and smells faintly of sandalwood. Its title reads, "The Soundless Hour, Sacred Silence and Dream Preparation." You open it carefully, half expecting it to shush you as the ink unfurls. According to the text, ancient Chinese mystics believed that the hour before sleep was the most spiritually volatile, like a tide change between the waking world and the dream realm. And during this soundless hour, silence wasn't just encouraged, it was required. This wasn't silence as in no talking. This was silence as ritual, a full body, whole environment commitment to stillness. Scholars in the Song dynasty would pad their rooms with fabric to muffle footsteps. Some even trained themselves to slow their breathing until they could no longer hear it, as if erasing their presence before the dream world could notice they were coming. One passage quotes a Taoist recluse who writes, "Only in the silence can the soul unbutton itself and walk freely." You try it. No tea, no humming. No brushing your teeth with overly enthusiastic swishing. Just quiet. And it's hard. At first, your brain fills the gap with noise. Memories of songs, that thing you said 5 years ago at a dinner party, the urgent need to scratch your elbow. But slowly, silence takes over like steam seeping into an empty room. Wei lights a stick of incense without a word. The scent is soft, barely there, but it feels like it belongs to the silence. Historians still argue whether this practice of enforced stillness had measurable health effects or was purely spiritual. But one modern theory suggests it primed the parasympathetic nervous system, a biological invitation for your body to begin the descent into true rest. You're not sure about your nervous system, but your shoulders do unclench, and your eyes grow heavier with every passing minute. In the dream that follows, there's no sound, none, just motion. You're walking barefoot across a floor that ripples under your steps, like fabric stretched tight. The world is lit by some unseen source, and everything is gentle. People nod at you in silence, smiling without moving their mouths. You communicate in gestures and colors, and somehow, shared breath. You wake in the exact position you fell asleep in, which is either a win or a sign of dream paralysis. You're not sure. Wei finally speaks. Good, right? You nod. It was good. And not just good, refreshing, like your mind had taken a bath in quiet. That day, you both try a new rule. No speaking until after breakfast. It leads to a lot of exaggerated eyebrow communication, some pantomime tea requests, and one accidental head nod that results in Wei handing you a raw potato. But it's worth it. The silence makes the morning feel like a continuation of the dream, as if waking up didn't completely cut you off from that gentler world. By the end of the day, you're convinced silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of attention. And now, every evening, you light your own incense stick and sit for a few minutes in that sacred stillness. The world doesn't stop at its lows, and in that quiet pocket of time, you feel more yourself than ever. You rise to the sound of wind rustling through paper screens, and Wei is already at work arranging a curious assortment of objects on the low table. A pine cone, a lotus seed, a brush with only 2 bristles, and what looks suspiciously like a carved peach pit. Today, he says, we explore dream amulets. You blink, still foggy. Did you say peach pit or shuh? He waves you over. Focus. The pit listens. The scroll he presents this time is thicker than usual and packed with tiny notes in the margins. Someone clearly obsessed. The main title reads, Charms of Slumber, Amulets, and Protective Talismans of the Night. According to the scroll, dream amulets were common from the Zhou dynasty onward, carried by scholars, mystics, and ordinary citizens alike. Some were etched with tiny poems meant to lure sweet dreams. Others bore symbols meant to ward off dream demons, unpleasant forces that prowled the subconscious like misbehaving cats. You hold up the peach pit talisman. It's carved with swirling clouds and a single character, peace. This one, Wei explains, was popular among expectant mothers. It was believed to calm both the mother's and the unborn child's dreams. Another object, the lotus seed, has an intricate spiral drilled into it, which was said to trap intrusive thoughts like flies and honey. You wonder if Amazon carries those now. Wei hands you a small pouch of worn silk. Inside is a dream stone, black on one side, white on the other. It's smooth, cool, and fits perfectly in your palm. The scroll explains that monks in the Tang dynasty would sleep with the dark side, touching the skin on nights they wanted dreamless rest, and flip it to the white side when they hoped to receive insight or visions. Historians still argue whether these stones held any tangible power or whether they simply worked as anchors for intention. But even modern psychologists agree physical rituals, however symbolic, can shape mental outcomes. You fall asleep faster with the stone in hand, don't you? A fringe note in the scroll describes an unusual amulet made from the whisker of a white cat. Legend says the animal was born under a lunar eclipse. The whisker was wrapped in parchment, covered with 5 dream glyphs, and sealed in beeswax, said to melt nightmares into fog. It was worn by an emperor who reportedly slept so soundly he once snored through a palace fire. You raise an eyebrow. Cat whisker magic? Wei grins. You believe worse things for free. Before bed, he teaches you how to tie a simple dream knot. A bit of red thread looped in a specific pattern and placed under the pillow. The knot, it said, can hold a dream steady or help retrieve one you've forgotten. That night, your dreams feel grounded, like someone put up handrails along the slippery edges. You're still wandering surreal landscapes, a floating pagoda here, a garden with koi that quote poetry there, but you feel more secure, like you've left a light on in the hallway. When you wake, the knot is still there, tucked safely under your pillow. You smile. It worked, or at least, it felt like it did. You begin carrying your own tiny dream pouch, adding objects one by one. A dried ginkgo leaf, a scrap of blue silk, a pebble from a river you've never named. None of them are magical by textbook standards, but they carry the quiet weight of belief. And belief, it turns out, is the heaviest kind of magic. Over breakfast, Wei reveals his own long-standing amulet, a bamboo ring painted with concentric circles. He doesn't say what it's for, only that it's worked every night since that bad dream in spring. He taps it gently and says no more. You don't ask, you just nod. Everyone has one dream they don't talk about. That evening, you pass the peach pit between your fingers, feel the tiny grooves warm under your touch, and breathe a little deeper. There's comfort in holding something, anything, that promises to guard you through the dark. Tonight, Wei meets you at the courtyard well, holding a ladle carved from dark wood and smelling faintly of something herbal. You're ready for the dream tea, he says. You raise an eyebrow. There's tea for dreams? There's tea for everything, he replies, solemn as a monk, though the glint in his eye suggests otherwise. Back inside, he unrolls the final scroll, visibly newer, as though copied more recently. Its header reads, "Brews of the unconscious, herbal infusions for guided dreams." The practice of drinking specific teas before sleep appears to date back as far as the Han Dynasty. Each blend was crafted with intent, some designed to anchor your spirit more firmly in your body, others to loosen the tether and let it wander freely. Your cup tonight contains a subtle mix of wild jujube seeds, lotus stamens, and dried lily petals. For peaceful memory dreams, Wei says, like a highlight reel, but softer. You sip. The flavor is floral, vaguely nutty, with a ghost of something like cinnamon. It makes your eyelids heavier almost immediately, though that might just be the power of suggestion. Still, it's pleasant, and it feels like being gently asked to slow down. One fringe note in the scroll speaks of dream teas made from snow fungus harvested only during lunar eclipses. Supposedly, these brews helped induce lucid dreams so vivid that one monk claimed to have designed an entire temple within one, then built it years later from memory. Historians still argue whether that monk was genuinely gifted or just very good at Pinterest. Some teas were calming, steeped with things like chamomile, chrysanthemum, or magnolia bark, but others were meant to stir dreams into action. Cinnamon bark, cloves, and even trace amounts of mugwort were believed to encourage symbolic imagery: phoenixes, celestial ladders, rivers that spoke in rhyme. You ask if people ever went too far. Oh, absolutely, Wei says, gesturing toward a drawing in the margin. A man dangling upside down from a cloud, holding a scroll that reads "Never Again." Modern herbalists might question the efficacy of some ancient blends, but even they'll admit ritual has power. When you brew a tea with intention, when you sip it slowly in candlelight, you're not just hydrating, you're signaling, telling your body and brain, this is the shift. This is the crossing. You watch as Wei pours his own cup, steam curling in the lamplight like a shy ghost. He closes his eyes for a moment after the first sip, and when he opens them again, they look quieter. The scroll suggests sipping slowly, letting each flavor unfold like a petal. There's even a suggested mantra, handwritten in the margins. I drink the path beneath my feet. You whisper it, half skeptically, half hopeful. That night, as you lie down, you can still taste the lily, still feel the warmth of the cup in your palms. Your dream begins as a walk along a river lined with glowing paper boats. Each one carries a memory, some yours, some unfamiliar, but somehow important. You recognize a younger version of yourself kneeling beside a stream, tying a red thread. You see Wei, younger too, scribbling in a notebook that flickers like a lantern. You pass a peach tree in bloom, even though it isn't the season. When you wake, the tea is long gone, but the memory of its warmth lingers. Wei nods at you over breakfast. No words, just understanding. The scroll, the amulets, the silence, they've all built toward this. Not just restful sleep, but the kind of sleep that holds meaning. You haven't just visited the ancient world. You've adopted it, let it seep into your skin and dreams. And now you carry it with you. And now, as the last traces of the story settle gently in your mind, there's no need to hold on tightly. Let each image blur just a little. The peach pit, the dream knot, the whispering garden of silence. They've served their purpose. You are no longer standing in a dusty courtyard, nor are you unrolling ancient scrolls by candlelight. You are here in your bed, the air still and soft, your body gently sinking. Your breath has slowed without effort. Your limbs feel heavier, yes, but not weighed down, just tethered enough to keep you safe while your mind begins to wander. You may not remember every detail of tonight's journey. That's all right. Dreams don't ask to be remembered. They only ask to be felt. And whether you find yourself walking through moonlit gardens or gliding past glowing lanterns on a slow-moving river, trust that you are in the company of those who once believed in the art of dreaming as a sacred ritual. And tonight, perhaps, so do you. So let the hum of silence cradle you. Let the weight of sleep wrap around your shoulders like the softest robe. And if a dream comes, welcome it. If it doesn't, that's all right too. The journey has already begun. Good night, dreamer.